We are the parents of Seal Stewart, the only camper from Camp Mystic still missing, and one of two known victims who remain unaccounted for after the flood. We are here today for two reasons. First, to express our unwavering support for SB 1, the Campaign for Camp Safety. Texas summer camps must be properly equipped, trained, and held accountable so that future generations of children can experience the joy of camp without being placed in preventable danger. Second, we are here to speak of our precious daughter, Seal. 3 generations of women in my family went to Camp Mystic. This year, it was finally Seal's turn. She was 8 years old, going for the very first time, her heart full of excitement to join the tradition of her mother and her aunt, who are both here today. Well, I'm her mother. Her aunt, her grandmother, who is here today, her great aunt, and 5 cousins. For Seal, camp meant adventure, memories, friendships, and lessons to carry for a lifetime. For me, it meant watching my child grow and learn, but always under the assurance that she would be safe. Joy and growth cannot exist without safety. Seal's chance to experience camp only existed because I was ensured that her safety and the safety of all the young girls was paramount. I ask you, what could have been more important than that? But that assurance was betrayed. Obvious common sense safety measures were absent. Protocols that should have been in place were ignored. As a result, my daughter was stolen from us. Seal's life ended not because of an unavoidable act of nature, but because of preventable failures. On just her 5th day of camp, the beginning of what should have been a magical first summer, our Seal was swept away, along with other bright, beautiful girls. She was stolen from her family, from her future, from the world she lit up with her independence and spunk. This legislation cannot bring back our daughters, but it is the beginning of change that must occur so this tragedy never happens again. It is the start of a promise that their lives and their deaths will mean change. It is an effort to ensure that no other family suffers as we all have. In addition to the families that are here today and that lost their children, there are hundreds of other campers that were affected by this that survived. The survival guilt and trauma that they went through, for many, is unknowable. They will be dealing with this for the rest of their lives. It is unfathomable. That wasn't scripted. And yet my daughter Seal Stewart, is still missing. 48 days later, Seal remains somewhere in the devastation of the Guadalupe River. We wait, trapped in agony, until she is brought home. Just this past weekend, we had the impossible task of again addressing our 5.5-year-old daughter that not only had Seal died, but her body has not yet been recovered. We had to tell her this because she started kindergarten at a new school today, yesterday. She needed to hear the unbearable truth from us that Seal's body has not been found, not from kids on the playground. It was the second hardest day of my life. We are profoundly grateful to the rescuers and recovery teams who have risked and sacrificed so much and that are still out there. But I must use this platform to plead with you. My baby girl is still missing. Until she is found, our family lives in a torture chamber of uncertainty. The agony is relenting. We cannot begin to grieve or to honor the fullness of her short, beautiful life until she is recovered and laid safely to rest. We are forced to pray for the day when our child's body is found and to call that good news. I ask you to carry that reality with you as you hear from us and from other families whose lives have been shattered. Right now, we cannot celebrate the light and the love that Seal brought into our lives. We are suspended in endless anguish, unable to move forward, unable to find peace. We ask you, please pass SB 1 so no parent sends their child to camp believing they are safe, only to face this nightmare. And just as urgently, please do not stop the search for Seal Stewart. Please do not give up on our girl.
My name is Caitlin Bonner, and my husband, Blake, and I are here today on behalf of our oldest daughter, Lila Bonner, who lost her life during the floods of July 4th. Lila turned 9 on June 26th, 3 days before we drove her into the gates of Camp Mystic. Her two little sisters, Wynn, 2, and Scarlett, 6, are now attempting to navigate a world without her, one that Blake and I never imagined would or could be our permanent reality. Before I begin sharing a speech I never imagined I would have to write, much the way I felt when I wrote my reflection for her funeral, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all today. As her mother, I am haunted by the events that took place on July 4th and wish with every fiber of my being that I was here under different circumstances. When Lila was born, I began writing letters that I planned to one day share with her. I wrote to her on her birthdays, on days when she did something funny or started a new activity, trying to capture precious memories and milestones that I never wanted to forget. I wrote to her on days when I was struggling, hoping that one day they could be a source of comfort and wisdom. Having lost my mom to cancer when I was 12 years old, I wrote these letters to Lila in the event that something ever happened to me. I never imagined that I would be the one reading them to her at her funeral, and most certainly not because she lost her life at Camp Mystic, where I spent 10 summers, 9 as a camper and 1 as a counselor in Bubble Inn. As I struggle to make any sense out of this horrific tragedy, these letters have been a gift I thought I would one day give her, but I now realize they are a gift from her. Lila was special. She was beautiful. She was pure. She was so kind. The most gentle little girl who fiercely loved her little sisters and all of her friends. A friend who preferred to shine her light on the people around her. A light she lit inside of me when she made me a mom. A light she lit throughout the halls and classrooms of Bradfield Elementary. A light she shared with her beloved family and friends, and a light I know she shared with the angels at Bubble Inn. Lila was the epitome of a firstborn child, the best big sister, and a rule follower who respected authority with impeccable manners. In the weeks leading up to camp drop-off, we shopped, organized, and packed her trunk with all the things I knew would make her feel safe. I gave her tips from my experience as a Mystic camper, suggesting she use her drawers for rest time activities and stationery, knowing that she wouldn't be able to get off of her bed during rest hour per camp rules. We received her dresser drawers with the first round of belongings recovered from camp, and it was no surprise to me to see that she had done exactly what I had suggested. I told her to take horseback riding first if possible, so she didn't have to change into pants after swimming on the quad. I had yet to see her camp schedule, but received a water-soaked copy from her cabin, and as expected, she'd followed my instructions. Riding was her first activity. I've been told she was voted best manners at her dining table and was a spirited tonk, even though she left camp desperate to be a Kiowa, like me. I will forever be haunted by the fact that I didn't know what I didn't know. I sent her to Camp Mystic to grow closer to God, make lifelong friends, try new activities, and encourage independence. To spend time outside, away from a screen, surrounded by like-minded girls that I knew she would cross paths with for life. I naively assumed she was safer at camp than anywhere else. When I think about the trauma and fear that our girls endured, it makes me physically ill. This loss is one no parent should have to endure. A piece of her purple trunk that I so lovingly and meticulously packed was recovered at the dam, 11.1 miles from camp. Her body, 5.6 miles from camp, behind the Hunt store. Ironically, the last place we were, or the first place we stopped after dropping her at camp. Our 6-year-old started first grade last week without her big sister holding her hand. Our 2-year-old will likely never remember her oldest sister aside from photos and videos. And her friends, who all started 3rd grade last week, have to reconcile how 2 of their classmates perished at summer camp in a flood they also were evacuated from while at neighboring camps. Their stories are harrowing, but they all survived. I'm not here today because I want to be. I'm here because I have to be. Our daughters deserved better, and future campers deserve better. I implore you all to act quickly and pass SB 1 to protect campers before next summer and to ensure that there will never be another Heavens 27 due to camp complacency. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Blake Bonner, and as my wife Caitlin just shared, our daughter Lila was one of the 27 precious lives lost at Camp Mystic on July 4th. I want to thank my fellow Mystic parents for their incredible strength. There's really no explanation for how this group was brought together and given the strength to be here today, other than our girls willing it from heaven. It is our angels who give us the strength to stand before you today. I also want to personally thank each member of this committee. Thank you for your time, and more importantly, for your sustained effort in driving real reform with SB 1. We see your stewardship, and we are very grateful. We also want to thank you for your empathy, allowing us and these other parents to share these unbearable stories takes a toll. It isn't easy, and we thank you for listening with open hearts. In the days after Lila's passing, our priest shared something that has anchored us. He said, God did not want this. He never wants a child to die senselessly. My faith has been challenged to its core, but hearing that reaffirmation and knowing what we know now about that night makes one thing painfully clear. This wasn't an act of God. This was an act of pure complacency. A common tragic theme you will find amongst the 27 angels we lost is that they were dutiful, they were perfect children who followed the rules. They did exactly what they were told to do that morning, stay in their cabins. Our daughters paid the ultimate price for their obedience to a plan that was destined to fail. And this risk is obviously not theoretical. As Senator Perry mentioned, these areas are called floodplains for a reason. They flood. This is why this was not an accident. It was 100% preventable failure. It was a failure of planning, prevention, detection, and response, which leads us to the questions that will forever haunt us. Why were our children sleeping in a known high-risk flood zone? Why was the stated evacuation plan to stay in place? Why were there no adequate warning systems in the cabins, despite a similar tragedy on the very river as recently as 1987? Why were summer camps, entrusted with the care of our most precious gifts, exempt from the basic safety standards required of every daycare and school in Texas? These are the questions that demand answers, not only in the form of thoughts and prayers, but in the form of meaningful legislative action. As it's been said, we cannot wait until the 2027 legislative session. To delay action is to tell every parent in Texas that their child's safety is not a priority. It is to accept a risk that has already been paid by the lives of our daughters, our Heavens 27, who paid that ultimate price. We urge you, from the depths of our grief, to act now. Pass meaningful camp safety standards this session in the form of SB 1. Honor the memory of our daughters by protecting the lives of others. Do not let another summer pass under this broken system.
I'm Carrie Hanna, and I'm from Dallas, and I'm here to testify in support of SB 1. You received a picture of our daughter, Hadley, earlier. She's the one in the white dress. For 14 years, I spent my summers on the magical banks of the Guadalupe River at Camp Mystic. I met my best friends there, learned how to be a good sport, and grow spiritually. I couldn't wait to have a daughter so she could go to Mystic and experience what I did. Even though it wasn't technically written in our wedding vows, I made Doug promise if we had a daughter, she would go to Camp Mystic. 9 years ago this week, we found out we were having Hadley. Before I get any further, let me tell you a little about Hadley. Hadley is the middle sister of Harper, who is 10 and was also at camp and rescued by the grace of God, and Hunter May, who is 6. She was the glue. Hadley was the best, happiest baby from the start. And as she grew, her love and her smile grew too. To know her was to love her because she loved everyone. She loved to give hugs, sometimes of the sneak attack variety, kisses and pets. Hadley was the nicest, sweetest, happiest person, always exuding joy. She always wanted to help her friends, whether it was teaching them how to tie their shoes or become a better gymnast. Hadley was a go-getter, and she knew what she wanted, and she worked her hardest to make it happen. She was so smart and insightful and wanted to be the best, most well-rounded person she could be. I was lucky enough to chaperone the Mystic Dallas bus to camp on June 29th. As I went to tell Hadley and Harper goodbye, I saw Hadley running across the field to see Harper in her cabin. They had been apart for 5 minutes at the most. Once I convinced them to come outside and take one last selfie and tell me goodbye, Hadley jumped down from the porch and started cartwheeling her way to her cabin. She heard me laughing, stopped, turned around, threw her hands in the air, and screamed, "I love this place." That was what camp was supposed to be all about. After all, the line, "Camp in My Dreams," is a song all Mystic girls learn and sing. Camp is where you learn new skills like horseback riding, diving, fishing. Hadley caught 2 massive bass and looked thrilled. Not thrilled enough to hold them in the photos, though. Camp is where you play games with silly names like deck tennis and steal the bacon. It is where you sometimes sing funny songs about buffaloes. Camp is supposed to be a break from the heartbreakers and stress of the school year, where you can look at the stars in the clear sky at night and braid hair during campfires, where you make your best friends that become your college roommates and later stand beside you at your wedding. Unfortunately, 5 days after starting, the camp of my dreams turned into a living nightmare I cannot wake up from. Hadley, Harper, and all the campers should have woken up on July 4th and celebrated the holiday with their new friends. Instead, Hadley was pulled out of a window of her twins' 2 cabin after it had filled with water. Less than 10 feet away were stairs to an upstairs apartment. That higher ground could have saved her life and the 5 girls in her cabin that also passed away. Hadley wasn't the strongest swimmer, Not that it mattered in those waters, but she was strong. So, so strong. I thought if she could hold on to something, she would be okay. Instead, she and 2 other little girls were knocked out of a tree and died. In total, 5 of the 12 girls from her cabin also died. Our precious, hilarious, kind, caring, silly, loving little girl who always wanted to help others died because there was no plan, because there was no backup system or sirens, because the sweet 18 and 19-year-old counselors did not have the training they needed. Instead, they were told to stay in place, a rule that proved to be fatal. To the best of our knowledge, the water started rising a little after 1 a.m. on the 4th. I woke up at 7 a.m. to text after text telling me that 2 little girls from Hadley's cabin had been found down the river by a neighbor and asking if I had heard anything. The answer was nothing. From our understanding, and this all needs to be investigated, there were over 6 hours of children being swept away and dying before anyone could come to their aid. On Saturday, July 5th, I made Doug drive me out to camp. We had gone 24 hours with basically zero information, and I needed to yell for Hadley and all of the girls who were missing. As we drove to camp, we saw no one in the water. No boats, people, nothing. They were all on the side of the roads. The air, too, was empty of helicopters, drones, and satellites. Just quiet and blue skies all around. We had a meeting at the church with officials at 10 o'clock on the night of the 5th, and we were once again without answers. We were told to come back the next morning at 7 to give DNA and that there would finally be answers. I personally asked if there were children in the morgue whose parents hadn't been notified. I had originally heard this from the media. The answer was yes. There were 5 whose parents were in the process of being notified and 1 unidentified. It turns out that 1 was our sweet daughter, Hadley Rebecca. The only way the Rangers knew for sure it was her was after I told them she had had alternating green and yellow nail polish on her fingernails. The child laying in a makeshift morgue could not have looked more different than our beautiful girl. It is a sight I can't get out of my head. It haunts me day and night and is all I think about. I think about how much she suffered and how scared she had to have been in that dark, cold water. It kills me that I couldn't have helped her. Before Hadley left for camp, she was worried about being away from me for a month. You see, she may have her dad's personality, but she was my mini-me and my best friend. I promised her she would be safe and okay. I told her camp was the safest place she could be, and she would make new friends and learn new things. I lied to her. She not only wasn't safe, she died. We sat around for 16 hours praying, hoping, pacing, getting prank phone calls and texts from people saying they had her. For her only to be found down the road, alone. The overwhelming lack of prevention, detection, training, and response in this situation is mind-boggling, and is what we are asking SB1 to address. This is not the first flood, and it certainly won't be the last. How did things go so wrong? Hadley could very easily be one of you if she had been given the chance to grow up, advocating to make her city and her state a better place. She dreamed of being a Longhorn and would have worked hard to accomplish that goal. Now it has been stolen from her because of blaring gaps in camp safety that cost our daughter her life and 26 other girls their lives.
I'm Lacey Virginia Ela Collis, and I live on a ranch outside of Belleville, Texas, where I grew up. In a house that was the first place I carried Virginia into, and the last place I carried her out of. I support SB1, and I would like to tell you why this bill is so important to me. My daughter Virginia, our first child, named for me and for my grandmother, died sometime after the rain and river flooding that happened in the early morning hours of July 4th. We don't know when she died. We don't know how. We really don't know anything. We may never know. All we do know is our daughter was at camp. She was not protected. She was not safe because she died along with 26 other girls. I was not there to protect her. But I do hope that this legislation can help protect other daughters and sons of Texas, other big sisters, little sisters, brothers, other people's babies, their grandchildren, nieces, nephews, cousins, all of the sweet, innocent best friends of those little girls, my godchildren and my friends' godchildren. Hopefully no other parent will ever experience the excruciating and unimaginable pain and torture I'm trapped in, or the never-ending nightmare that is my life now. And I have to fight not to drown in it every second of every day. My hope for our actions here today, your actions, all of the people still at work, is that SB 1 will result in meaningful safeguards, enforceable safeguards, so that any child can attend a Texas camp and have the most incredible formative time of their life, with freedom and purity to make lifelong friends, to have dance parties, to wear fake nails with tiny avocados on them even while they're trying to learn archery. Children should be able to safely do that in the state of Texas. It won't be Virginia because she died at camp, at a place I thought she would be more protected than anywhere else on earth that I could send her. I was wrong. These are the things that Virginia will never have a chance to vote for or question, ever, because she died at age 8, 10 years before she could vote. I'm her mother. I carried her in my body. I need for her voice to still be heard. This needs to become law, exactly because she lost the chance to grow up and testify for these things today. 27 girls will never get to speak in this building, never have the time on earth to graduate college, to marry the love of their life, to have a baby, or to realize their dreams. I don't want any more children to die at a Texas youth camp. What happened there changed our world because our daughter, one of our 2 children that made up our whole world, died. This is a cookbook that I made for our family after my grandmother, Virginia, died, to remember and preserve our family's and friends' history and legacy. My grandmother was 103. I thought I'd have my whole life to share this heritage with my children, that they would add to it one day as they grew and discovered new inspirations. That's Virginia with Sienna. That's how she wrote her name. That's me, Lacey Virginia, and that's my grandmother Virginia. There's even a recipe that Eden gave me that I learned was from your mother, I think, with shrimp dip. It's one of my favorites. Somehow, I'm the only Virginia of my family left on this earth. Several of you have heard me read my poem. I have a copy for each committee member, and I'm happy to read it for you another time in the future. But it represents only a single drop of the thousands of tears I have cried and the million more that is my future. My anguish is as infinite as the stars in the sky and equally as unfathomable, searing, blazing, exploding, a black hole of pain. But I can shed those tears. I can search for the joy, the laughter, search for some peace. Only because I've been able to bury my daughter. Virginia was the last of our 27 precious daughters whose body was found. That doesn't mean she was the 27th child found. Seal has yet to be recovered for her family, and that, if for no other reason, is why SB 1 should become law. Virginia cannot stay the last one found. But if she must, then we better make sure that Seal remains the last one who needs to be found. There cannot be a 28th one day. There shouldn't have even been one, but there could have been hundreds. The care and safety of our children should be the highest priority above any other considerations. Thank you for listening to me.
I am a proud Eagle Scout. Our motto, ingrained in me at an early age, was two simple words: be prepared. Simply be prepared. We spent 8 years preparing our daughter Virginia to go to camp so that she would feel comfortable and safe. We taught her how to address letters, how to make her own bed, put away her things, wear socks with tennis shoes, brush her teeth, wear life jackets when boating, safely be around horses and cattle. In fact, I have proof of how she recently prepared. The two of us recently visited my 106-year-old grandmother in June because I feared the opposite would occur. And Virginia, in her luggage, created a checklist of the things so that she could prepare. Things from 2 goggles, 2 shorts, and many other things. We prepared. We made sure she'd have familiar faces on the first day at camp. Took a lot of work and time because we live in a rural town. As we best could, we prepared her to have the time of her life, to make friends and have her own experiences without us. We wanted to give her the gift to grow outside of our control, but in safety. Of the 3 girls she met prior to camp, only one survived. I support Senate Bill 1 because all the time and preparation we gave to our daughter, at a minimum, that same care needs to be required by law for the children at all Texas camps. We thought she would be safe there. Instead, she died. Organizations in charge of children need to be prepared for all kinds of situations, especially emergencies. Schools, daycares, all have fire drills, active shooter drills, hurricane, tornado drills, anything of what they may possibly face. I do not know why the same standard is not applied to camps, but they should be prepared. And if they can't be prepared, they shouldn't have the care of our children. Unfortunately, my daughter's family tree will no longer grow because of a lack of preparation, detection, training, and response. I am tormented every night around 2 a.m. I cannot sleep. I will forever be haunted by the fireworks on the 4th of July, standing outside the morgue, only to then have to wait till July 15th to bring Virginia home. Despite the pain, Virginia was simply incredible. It was an honor to love her and be her father. A wise person once said, when someone you love becomes a memory, that memory becomes a treasure. I'd like to leave you by sharing a treasure Virginia left for us. Her last song she ever composed, Virginia's song.
To the Bonners and to the Hunts, to the Hannahs and the Hollises. We haven't asked any questions because we're having to absorb this torrent of grief, which is all well-deserved. Just like, unfortunately, the 27 in heaven had to absorb that on July the 4th. But I want to say this, I can't relieve you, we can't, none of us can, of the guilt and the grief that you feel. But I want you to let us relieve some of the responsibility that you feel, because we can take that on and we can make sure this doesn't happen again. So I can't stop the dreams, but as beautiful as Virginia's last song was, we'll make sure that this doesn't happen again to the next Virginia. And more importantly, I want you to understand that this testimony is so profound that I can speak for my colleagues. I want you to leave here knowing that we'll take the responsibility as much as we can from you. This bill is going to pass. These camps are going to be safe. And that's our commitment to you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Kokors.
Thank you. Laura's, we met the other day with some of the families. Senator Flores, Senator Perry, and I, and 3 of our House colleagues. And Laura's, I want you to know that our family had a conversation about your words about be prepared. It's a really good reminder for all of us, just in life. And I say that because I want you to know you're being heard. And you're impacting lives. This tragedy is going to impact future lives. My chief of staff said to me the other night, I can't unhear their stories. I can't unhear their stories. And that's a good thing. Because of these lives of these precious children will never unhear the stories. And we will make changes. Or Lacey, Nim and Blair in the back of the room, I know I called y'all so many times about Virginia and just trying to find her. And we made some changes along the way about how we were communicating with you. Chief Kidd, thank you for our very deep conversation about how we have to, communicate differently. We were maybe letting some things happen on the local level that the state took over. Thank y'all. And I agree. We cannot stop looking for Seal. Because Lars, I remember what you said to me. When you said, help me, Lois. Help me just bring Virginia home. I want her here in Belleville. Grateful to everyone for finding her. Thank you, all of you, for telling your story. Thank you. Because as Senator Bittencourt said, we will carry this forward. And you're right. I wrote down those quotes. Lacey, meaningful safeguards, but enforceable safeguards. Senator Perry, I think we're getting there. No reason that camps can't be fun and safe.